Hey folks, welcome back to the channel. As you'll see from the title, this is not a TBR. I do not do set in stone TBRs. This is a pile of possibilities. Basically, okay, so we all know I'm pretty much a romance reader at this point. The vast majority of what I read is romance in one form or another. I used to be, I say predominantly, I was almost solely a fantasy reader at one point, several years ago now, but fantasy is what got me into reading, it's what I cut my teeth on. It will always be my first love. And in the last sort of like year or so, I've had this almost yearning to go back to reading more fantasy. It's just never where my mood has taken me at any given time. Which is not to say I haven't read any fantasy. It's my second most read genre. But I think for the next little while, I do want to do a little bit of focusing on fantasy. And a really good opportunity to do that is by attempting the Our Fantasy bingo board. Now, I'm going to preface this. I'm still not 100% certain if I'm going to do Our Fantasy this year. Although it did start 2 weeks ago at the time of filming this. So it'll be, by the time you guys get this video, it will be sort of like end of April. So it will be a month into the Our Fantasy bingo board year. In theory, I'll have made a decision by then. I probably won't have though. But before I committed to the possibility of doing Our Fantasy bingo, I thought what I would do is go through the prompts and go through my physical TBR, because this is my physical TBR, all three shelves doubled up. Our Fantasy would be a really good way to tackle that. And yeah, I thought I would go through those and the prompts and go, do I have the books to do it? Because one thing I really don't want to do for this is buy any more books. Going forward, I want to be, like, I've got plenty to read. We covered this in my March reading wrap up. I have more than enough to be getting on with. I do not need to buy any more books. I want to be a lot more intentional with what I'm buying. Especially as I am probably going to be replacing my Kindle soon with a Kobo. Cancelling my Amazon Prime, so I'm not going to have as ready access to ebooks anyway, so I'm going to have to be a lot more conscious of the ebooks that I purchase. I want the same to translate over to my physical reading, my physical purchases. So I went through it, I went through the prompts. Here's the thing, with one or two exceptions, I have multiple books on these shelves that will fit each prompt. And with one exception, I have not repeated any books. So we're going to go through the prompts. I'm going to tell you some of my possibilities. I think everything bar, like I say, one or two has at least two options, and there's probably more. It can be very hard to tell if a book will fit a prompt without reading the book yet. So bear in mind, this is me guessing. I'm using what other people have already popped into on Storygraph as well as an aid. So with all 3.5-4 minutes of preamble, let's just get into it. The first prompt for it, I've got them all written down here by the way, so when I'm looking over here, you know the drill at this point. But anyway, the first prompt is a non-binary protagonist that cannot be an alien or a robot. Yes. So for this, on my shelves, I have She Who Became the Sun. I'm not entirely certain if the main character in that is non-binary or trans. So there could be a bit of grey area there. I'm not entirely sure. And again, I won't know until it fits. But I also have The Adventures of Amina Al-Sarafi. And I've been told that that does fit. If anyone knows, and this goes for all of the prompts, if anyone knows, like, if I'm giving the wrong information or you know of a better recommendation, feel free to chuck it in. Again, hopefully I own it, but you never know. And yeah, this is going to be super quick. I'm not telling you guys plots because there's 50 plus books here and we know I ramble enough as it is, so let's not encourage me further, shall we? So the second prompt is judge a book by its title. Hard mode is to dive in without reading the blurb or summary. So I didn't actually go through the shelves. I have a spreadsheet, so I went through the TBR tab on my reading spreadsheet and went, which titles sound most interesting? And the 4 I came up with, we've got The Glass Dragon, The Mermaid, the Witch and the Sea, Half a Soul, and I think the one that I find the most interesting is How to Be Eaten. Could work. Could work. That prompt obviously is entirely subjective, so, you know. The third one, stories that have been translated from a language you don't read or speak. I have gone with, there are a number of translated books on my shelves, but not all of them are fantasy. A couple of romance as well. But what I have absolutely been ignoring, with the exception of Grandmaster, is my Danmei. So on this one, I have put Heaven Official's Blessing, probably the 3rd volume because that's the next one I need to read. But I also own the 1st volume of Husky and His White Cat Shizun. It's really hard preventing myself giving you guys summaries, but I do not want this video to be 2 hours long. And I don't think you guys want it to be 2 hours long either, so we're gonna bear with me, right? The 4th prompt is a small press or self-published. Read a book published by a small press or self-published. If it was formally self-published that then gets picked up by a publisher, it will only count if you read it whilst it was self-published. So for this one, I'm going to go with Blood of the Covenant. I actually picked this one up in Waterstones last year. The author did his launch at the Waterstones in Inverness and was signing copies, so I actually have a signed copy of this one. Okay. Unusual transportation. The story includes a surprising method of moving from place to place. By unusual, we mean something that is out of the ordinary in real life and uncommon to the book's broader genre. This can include a highly unique take on a genre staple, spaceships with FTL wouldn't normally count. I don't know what that means. I don't know what FTL is. I do not read that much sci-fi. But the infinite improbability drive from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy would. Hard mode is it cannot be combustion or steam powered. This one I really struggled with, racking my brains, looking, like was physically looking, rummaging in the shelves at this point. I feel like this is one, until you've read the book, it's almost impossible to tell unless it is like actually covered in the blurb. So for this one, I was reliant on what other people have already put into the storygraph. And someone suggested Tress of the Emerald Sea has unusual transportation, so we're going to go with that. But I think that's something that would be covered hopefully just naturally by just generally by my reading. So there we have that one. The Afterlife, a story that deals with the realm of the dead. This could be communicating with the dead, spirits transferring over, or being set in the afterlife itself. So this is the prompt that has my one overlap. And in a way, if I don't, you cannot double up on books, or, oh, you can't double up on authors either. But it's okay. Both of these have options. But Heaven Official's Blessing would absolutely count in this one. But I've also got a Fine and Private Place and If I Have to Be Haunted. I have previously started reading If I Have to Be Haunted, but I got distracted by something else. I think a new release of something else came out and I dropped If I Had to Be Haunted and I started reading that and I never went back to it. So this would be a good opportunity to go back and actually finish that book. I don't think I got halfway through it, so we'll still count it as reading all of it. And for the 7th prompt, you can tell what TV series and book series the people who came up with the prompts have recently been watching, because the 7th one is called Game Changer. I'm halfway through the series right now. But for this one, it is a story that features a game or a competition. So for this one, my options I've given myself are Caraval, A Deadly Education, and Immortal Longings. For a vacation spot, the story takes place somewhere you want to visit, either fictional or non-fictional. This is subjective as everyone has different tastes. I'm going to go with Tea You at the Altar. It is the 3rd book in the Tea and Tomes series by Rebecca Thorne. In theory, I'm putting pictures up, so you'll see. It's fine. Mostly because I think it would be quite fun to visit their little village and go visit their bookshop and drink some of their tea. I am not the most predictable of people, but some of my favourite vacations involve just going somewhere and chilling out with a book. I have taken myself on book shopping holidays before, so that fits right in with me. I would absolutely go there. It would be great. And I would pet their griffins. It would be awesome. Okay. Prompt 9 is 5 short stories. Read any 5 speculative short fiction stories. Hard mode is to read an entire anthology or collection. I have a couple of anthologies, but I've read most of them by this point, or most of their content by this point. So I think for this one, what I'd probably do is just see if I can borrow an anthology from the library. That's kind of the best I can give you right now. No, I definitely don't have anything that I haven't read most of it. And I think I've got 2 or 3 that I've still got 1 or 2 left to read in, so at an absolute push I could just completely finish everything in all 3 of those. But I've had them for a very long time, and if I've not read them those particular stories by this point, there's probably a reason I don't want to. So we'll see. The 10th prompt is older protagonist. The story features a main character who is at least 50 years old. And hard mode is the protagonist does not have an exceptional longevity or immortality. For example, they're not fae, they're not a vampire. I have 2 options for this one. I've got Kings of the Wild by Nicholas Ames, because I believe that the whole point of that story is that they are retired mercenaries, so in theory they're over 50. We'll see. But also House of Sky and Breath, which is the 2nd book in the Crescent City. Just last month I finished reading the 1st one. I really, really enjoyed it. So I think actually give myself the motivation to continue a series would be very good, instead of just continually always starting a series. Yeah. Because the very next prompt has you starting a series. Excuse me. And that is because prompt 11 is Duology, part 1. Read the first book in a duology. Hard mode is an author you haven't read before. I'm not doing hard mode all the time. You've possibly noticed by now I'm only telling you hard mode for a couple of them, if I think the prompt fits hard mode, but I just want to do this in general mode. So the book I'm going to go for this one is A Sam for the Wild Build by Becky Chambers. I have read from Becky Chambers before. She also wrote Long Way to a Small Angry Planet. Prompt 12 is the Our Fantasy Book Club or read-along book. Tackle any past or active Our Fantasy Book Club, past or active read-alongs, and then they give you a whole list of where things are. I had a quick skim through it, and the first three that I saw that I own that I haven't read are The Raven Scholar, Kindred, and Ancillary Justice. It's actually shocking how many books I own that I haven't read that I'm a little amazed that I managed to, like, I could, if I really put my mind to it, I genuinely could do this. This one I only have one option for because I have been much more conscious of my buying this year so far. And any books that I have bought, I have for the most part been reading. So it's a book published in 2026. I have two. I haven't added that one to my spreadsheet yet. Okay, I've got two books that were published in 2026 that I have not yet read. And they are The Last Starborn Seer and Agnes Obert's Mystical Cat Sanctuary. Agnes Obert. All right. Moving on to prompt 14, Explorers and Rangers. Again, this is another one where I've only put one in, but I think it could be filled quite naturally through my reading. And it's a story that features an explorer or a ranger. So I think Emily Wilde would absolutely count as an explorer. So I've put in Emily Wilde's Map of the Otherlands, which is the second book in that trilogy. Our fantasy bingo does not encourage. If I stick to the proper rules, I'm not allowed repeat authors. So Agnes, if I want to read Emily Wilde for this one, I would not be able to read Agnes Obert for my 2026 release. So for that one, it would need to be The Last Starborn Seer, unless I buy something else. But I don't want to be buying books for this. Although I do have a few pre-orders, so some of my I've got those could count in a pinch. Yeah, look at me justifying probably spending more money. So cool. All right, prompt 15. So we were 3/5 of the way there. Can't math. I cannot math. It's fine. This is duology part 2. To read the second book in a duology. So for this one, this is the only time we're allowed to repeat authors, because one of the option is to finish the duology you started in part 1, although hard mode is to finish a different duology. So for this one, I will go for A Prayer for the Crown Shy by Becky Chambers. 16, we have a one-word title. Hard mode, which I will be succeeding for this one, is that the title is not a proper noun. So for this one, my options are Fathom Folk, Ruin, which is the third book in the Faithful and the Fallen. I am currently finishing the second book right now, and Pantomime. Pantomime? Mime? I don't know how. Pantomime? Pantomime? Pantomime. I don't know how to pronounce that word, apparently. Okay, moving on. Prompt 17, we have a non-human protagonist. So for this one, I could be very good and I could finally finish the Filthy Rich Vampire series because I only have book 4 left to read, and I genuinely don't know why I haven't, because I really enjoyed books 1 to 3. I think because I read them back to back, I kind of burned out and I've just never picked up the 4th one. I think I've read like the first few chapters, but I've never properly picked it up. So this could be finally time to get round to that. So I read those about 2-3 years ago now. Or I could start a new series and I could read Homeland, which is the first book in the Legends of Dread series. It's nice to have options, isn't it? Right. Number 18 is middle grade. Read a middle grade book. I don't own a lot of middle grade. It's like I don't read a lot of YA. I read even less middle grade. What I do own are a number of Redwall books, not all of which I have read. So for this one, I'm going to put any Redwall book. I'll give you guys a picture of Redwall just to represent, but it will be any Redwall book. First Contact. A story prominently features interspecies or interracial meeting for the first time. So this one, I've got Quicksilver, and I put a little question mark next to it because although I know there are species meeting, I think we've got like human mortals and fae meeting. I don't know if it's the first time the species have met. Then I've got Children of Time, because I believe it's humans and possibly meeting space spiders. This is going to be a tentative one. I'm probably going to really enjoy this, but spiders. So we'll probably continue putting that off. And then there is The Mountain in the Sea, which I think has alien octopuses, which I'm quite excited about, if I ever get around to it. The next one, it's Murder Mystery. The main plot focuses on solving a murder mystery. This one I genuinely didn't think I would have anything on here, and then I remember that a huge part of fantasy is often plots are often start with, hey look, someone got murdered. Now we go on this epic quest. But I tried to stay away from like the epic quest books. So my options are What the River Knows by Isabella Ibanez and Voyage of the Damned. Realize I'm only giving you half of the authors, but I'm theory also putting pictures up, so you will see them just about. Okay, last row, last 5 to go. We got this. 20 minutes in. I am very, very glad I'm not giving you synopsis because it genuinely would be 2 hours long. So for this one, we've got Cat Squasher. The title of this prompt. But that is, it's read a book that is over 500 pages in length. So I just went onto my TBR tab and I filtered and I picked a handful of them. The ones I've sort of like really been meaning to get around to. So we have Priory of the Orange Tree, which is well over the 700, possibly over the 800 page mark. We've got Empire of the Damned, which is the second book in that trilogy. I really enjoyed the first book and I just don't know why I haven't continued on with them because it was very compelling to read. Mask of Mirrors and The Grace of Kings. If I read The Grace of Kings before the end of June, I could also count that one towards Herkyad because I need to read a book with the word kings in it. So it's going to be that or Kings of the Wild. 22, feast your eyes on this. Food or a meal is significant to the story's plot. Now, if I'm filling this with books I'd already read, I did at one point make a playlist of books that made me hungry, and I have read multiple books since I made that video that would be perfect for this. The latest of which being How to Lose a Goblin in 10 Days. It will probably be a while before I stop recommending that book every chance I get. But this is books I haven't read. So there is, again, this is a really difficult one to fill if you haven't already read the book. So trying to come up with something beforehand is not the easiest. So looking at what people have already populated in the Storygraph Challenge, the Spell Shop could count, which is a cozy fantasy, maybe. And this would be the only book that I don't physically own, but I do have the ebook, and that is Cursed Cocktails, which, given the name, given the title, is probably a sure bet. So we'll see. Next up is books published in the 70s. I only own 3 books that I have not read that were published in the 70s. There is The Fly and Sorceress, Kindred, and Dragon Quest. Now, technically Dragon Quest would be a reread, but I first read them in my teens and I genuinely cannot remember anything about it, so I'm treating it as brand new. We've only got 2 more. Stick in there. Bear with me, guys. But the last one is Politics and Court Intrigue. For this one, I feel like probably anything that involves the Fae or the Seelie Courts would count. So there's probably a lot more on there because there's a fair amount of fantasy romance on there if in the shelves, if we're being honest. But the ones I've gone with are Of Jade and Dragons, For She Is Wrath, and Empire of Sand. And then the last prompt, certainly not the least, is Author of Colour, a story written by a person of colour. So for this one, I've gone with David Mogu Mugo Godhunter by Suyi Davis Okunbua. These 3 authors, I will butcher their names and I do apologise for that. I'm trying not to be disrespectful. But I've also never heard any of them said out loud. Okay, so that was my first one. The second one is Joan Hay. She wrote Descendant of the Crane. And then the third is Vaishnavi Patel, which is Goddess of the River. Vaishnavi Patel is the only author I have read from here. She wrote Kaikei, and Kaikei was amazing. So of these 3, I think Goddess of the River is the one I'm most likely to pick up first, but the other 2 genuinely sound really interesting. I wouldn't own them if they didn't though, so yeah. Anyway, this is thankfully not quite half an hour long, but not far off of it. So yes, once again, very grateful we did not tell you what any of these books are about. If you have made it this far, listening to me literally just list off books, well done. Why are you still here? Why? You've just left me playing on in the background, haven't you? Yes, this I approve of. But yeah, if you have made it this far, well done, thank you. If you have any suggestions for filling these prompts, I would be more than happy to hear them. Are you going to be doing our fantasy bingo? What are you thinking about reading for that? Like if you liked this, I guess. Subscribe if you want to, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!